Okay, let's be real for a second. There comes a time when the business you built, the one that once lit you up and it paid the bills and it gave you purpose, and let's be honest, it probably gave you a little bit of an identity boost as well too. It starts to feel like heavy. It doesn't necessarily feel broken or wrong, just kind of outdated. And it's like almost like putting on a jacket you used to love to realize like it just doesn't fit anymore. Maybe it's too tight in the shoulders, or maybe it itches where it never used to. And it still looks good from the outside, but inside you're just kind of squirming a little bit. So this is the moment so many high achieving women hit in their perimenopause menopause transition. The systems that once served you, the things like the hustle and the strategy and the push, suddenly start working against your body. Your intuition maybe gets a little louder and your tolerance for noise gets a little bit lower and your vision starts to shift. So today's episode is for the woman standing right on the edge of that shift. And that wasn't that long ago for me. The woman realizing that the business that had got her here might not be the one that carries her forward. And that doesn't mean you failed. It means you've evolved. So let's talk about what it really looks like to pivot a purpose led business in the menopause transition from the inside out. All right, let's dive straight in. So I want to start with something I don't talk about that often. And that's the moment I realized that the business I had lovingly built, my practice, my naturopathic practice, the one that had changed lives and totally fulfilled me for years, was starting to ask something different of me. And here's the thing that was really confusing at the time. I wasn't falling out of love with it. I still loved my practice. I still do to this day love my practice. I love working with women one on one in their breakthroughs and holding space for their healing. It's incredibly powerful work. And it's so fulfilling and wonderful to connect with women on such a deep level in that healing space. But at this time, something deeper had started surfacing. And it didn't come as a result of burnout. It wasn't like some people where, you like just hit that wall and it's just like, I can't do this anymore. And it wasn't like I was bored either. Again, I could go into the office and I could be in a bad mood. I could be like dragging my butt in the door. And as soon as I sat down in front of my patients, like immediately I'm filled with joy, I'm filled with energy, and it's just so incredible. And yet, looking back at this time, there was this like quiet, persistent inner tug sort of pulling me forward, a call to do more. And not more like adding on to my to do list, but more like expanding my mission. And I would often like be very confused, thinking like, I love what I'm doing. But the thought of doing only this for the next like 15 years just doesn't feel right. And the call, it was like, although it was quiet and though it was subtle, it was relentless. And I didn't care how many clients I had. I didn't care how full my calendar was. It was that calling was asking me to shift and to evolve and to stop hiding in the intimacy of my one-on-one work and to start speaking out more to larger groups. And especially around a topic that I felt had been neglected and misunderstood and twisted into something disempowering. And that, of course, is menopause. I had come to the belief that menopause wasn't just a medical condition, a physical condition that needed to be treated. It wasn't a diagnosis. But the way it's talked about, the way women are, or more often aren't educated around it, it makes us makes you feel like your power is like slipping through your fingers, that you're suddenly being hijacked by hormones and that you have no control over your body or your life. Like your actual relevance is on the line, that you don't even recognize yourself anymore, or like your body has betrayed you. And that messaging drives me crazy. It infuriates me because the truth is, this season, this physiological shift also, although I won't deny that obviously for many of us, it comes with a lot of really significant symptoms that can be incredibly disruptive. It also holds so much potential for reclamation. But that message, it's not what's loud out there. What's loud is fear and shame and the sort of fix it culture, the productivity obsession, the just get back to where you were, to just get back to who you used to be, to put a break on this horrendous aging process. The belief that if you're not pushing, you must be falling behind. And I couldn't stay quiet in the face of that. I couldn't keep working behind closed doors when I knew my voice could reach further. And part of being able to articulate this came with one of the patients that I worked with. She was a counselor, she was smart and she was soulful and she was deeply committed to her clients, but she was also tired. She was bone tired. Not the kind of tired a nap's going to fix. The kind of tired that, as I've said before, will settle in your bones, like you're just bone weary. And she was holding so much for her clients, for her family, for herself. And somewhere along the way, she actually stopped holding herself. And she told me, like, I still care. I still believe in what I do, but this isn't sustainable. And I feel like I'm completely unraveling. That unraveling, it wasn't a failure. It was, in fact, what I think of as wisdom. So together, we stopped looking at our business like something to scale or fix, and we started seeing it as something instead to realign. We reimagined what her work could look like if it honored her biology, her intuition, and her deeper purpose. And she shifted from full time one on one work to a blend of group programs and much more spacious weeks. And she built in room for rest and for joy and for really deep sleep. And by doing that, her work it didn't actually shrink, it got stronger. She showed up more fully. She started attracting clients who were ready for the work she truly wanted to do, and her body, it began to actually trust her again. Now, when I look back on that season for myself, I began straddling two business models. The one built from intuition, which was my naturopathic practice, and one that ended up being built from pressure. And I can see it so clearly now. I was, as I said, called forward into creating something new, but I bought into that story that's out there, especially with entrepreneurs about like hustle and grind and launch culture. And that, of course, eventually didn't feel in alignment. So the first model, my naturopathic model, was deeply relational. It was rooted in presence and connection. And the second is I tried to shift forward and expand what I felt called to expand. Although it was full of promise, it was quietly pulling me into performance. And it's not like the online space, which is where I was creating my new business, is inherently wrong. It's just the dominant voices were echoing a model that didn't make room for my rhythm, a woman's rhythm, her intuition, or her actual capacity, especially in menopause. The formulas were incredibly fast paced, churning out content, churning out launches, churning out offers. And the energy like felt really sharp and urgent and transactional and definitely not steady and sustaining. So the problem wasn't visibility. I think the problem was really like velocity. I was being pulled forward by systems that had no interest in how I felt or how my body functioned. As I said, launch calendars that didn't care where my energy dips were, productivity hacks that ignored the reality of brain fog, and business models that rewarded over delivery and penalized holding boundaries. And although I started to recognize this, I still questioned myself because this is the so-called proven model of entrepreneurships. These were the experts. This was what success was supposed to look like, right? Except I was exhausted. I was trapped. And the more I pushed, the more fragmented I became. So this is the part no one talks about, that you can actually scale your business and simultaneously shrink your joy. You can build systems that technically work, but they don't feel good. You can be strategic and still completely out of sync with yourself. So I had to take a step back and I had to reframe this whole thing. Not just my business, but my entire relationship to value, visibility, and voice. And that's when I started working with a framework I now call menopause-proofing your business. So if we're on the side of building from proving, it says things like, I have to do more to matter. My pace needs to match the algorithm. Success means being constantly available, constantly visible, constantly on. And it's rooted in scarcity, urgency, and fight or flight survival mode. On the flip side, we have building from presence. And thankfully for me, I had that model of my practice, which I had built originally. And that was built from presence. And that model says, I can do less and have more impact. My timing is sacred. My presence is magnetic when I trust it. And building from presence is rooted in clarity, safety, and energetic leadership. And let's be clear, it isn't about choosing one strategy or business model over another. It's how you embody what you build. So you can run a group program, a membership, a coaching, one-on-one coaching practice, and you can either exhaust yourself by trying to prove something or root into presence and let your work expand from there. It's more about how you show up, not just what you're selling. This is where the author of Women Who Run with Wolves gave me the language for what I was living. She writes about how wildness, instinct, intuition, and deeper knowing doesn't die when we ignore it. It just goes underground and it waits. And eventually, if you're lucky, it speaks again. And that's exactly what it felt like to me. My wild was speaking again. But wildness isn't chaos. It's clarity. It's the deep knowing that you're allowed to evolve, even if what you built so-called works, even if people love it, even if it makes sense on paper. So you are allowed to outgrow what no longer reflects your soul. You are allowed to want rest, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. And you're allowed to crave more impact with less noise and not apologize for it. That's the business I began building, a business that mirrors how I want women to feel in this season of life. And here's what that looked like for me. So I built in real margins, actual breathing space, not just buffers between calls. I restructured my program to match my energy instead of forcing my energy to match it. I got radically clear on my yeses and nos and practiced saying both without letting my nervous system crash. I started writing and teaching in a tone that felt like me, not the tone that gets more clicks or chases the most trends or goes viral. And the result, my nervous system softened, my creativity returned, and I could really hear that deep knowing, that inner voice that was calling me forward. It started to become crystal clear about what I was supposed to be putting into this world. So here's the secret the masculine model of business doesn't want you to know. Slower doesn't necessarily mean smaller, and aligned doesn't mean lazy, and nor does rested mean irrelevant. It means sustainable, it means strategic in a way only intuition can be, and it means not burning down your own house just to keep everyone else warm. So you can build your next level from clarity and from calm and from your wildness returned. You don't have to push through this next chapter. You actually get to root into it if you choose. You get to build a business that matches the depth of your wisdom. And you get to speak to the women who are tired of proving and ready to come home to themselves. And when your business becomes that, not just a service, but a sanctuary, everything changes because now you're not just building a brand, you're becoming this lighthouse. And that's the kind of leadership we need more of. Not louder, but deeper. And not shinier, but truer. Just you, fully present, fully powerful, fully home. So here's what I want you to understand. Just because it worked doesn't mean it still fits. That's it. That's the line. The business, the brand, the rhythm, the role, it may have served you and nourished you, even built you and your business. But if it no longer reflects who you are now, it's okay to let it evolve. You are not failing. You are not flaking out. There is not something wrong with you. You're responding to the wisdom inside you, that wild, instinctive part of you that says the next version needs to be built differently. So let's land this conversation in your body, because if your nervous system is your strategy, and I truly believe it is, then the business you build needs to honor that truth in practice and not just theory. Because this all sounds good, but how do we do it? So, this next section is for the women who are ready to rebuild, not from exhaustion or urgency, but from deep clarity and from presence, from biological alignment, and from that knowing that you get to do it differently now. So, let me share 3 ways to start shifting towards a nervous system based business. These aren't hacks or funnels or time saving techniques. They're patterns of permission, strategies that start in your cells. So, number 1, align with where you are, not where you think you should be. So many of the women I work with come to me carrying a business that reflects their past self, a vision born 2, 5, even 10 years ago. It fit then, and it may have been beautiful and perfect then, but now it no longer fits. And yet they keep trying to force it, trying to scale it, trying to optimize a model that no longer matches their bandwidth, their biology, or their beliefs. Your nervous system knows when something is misaligned, even if your calendar says it's all working. Misalignment creates background noise, and that drains clarity, it drains our intuition, and it creates this low grade hum of, I don't want to do this, that we often ignore because discomfort feels easier to bear than admitting change is needed. So the very first step isn't glamorous, but it is radical. Tell the truth about where you are. Not where your high school self thought you'd be, not where your coach thinks you should go, not where your peers are sprinting towards, where you are. What you actually want now. What kind of support do you need? What kind of pace would feel nourishing instead of depleting? Maybe you're in a season of softening, or maybe you're in a season of rising. Either way, if you're trying to build from should, you'll always be building against yourself. So we need to start with presence, and then we need to look at our offers, check our schedule, and ask yourself, is this designed for the woman I am? Okay, strategy number 2, fierce editing. Here's where we stop romanticizing complexity. A regulated business is a simple business, not simplistic, but streamlined. And to get there, you need to become a fierce editor. Fierce editing means getting really clear about what's no longer serving you and releasing it without guilt. I tell my clients if it's not nourishing, it's noise. So, what platforms drain you? What offers are you carrying out of obligation? What systems feel clunky? And what habits belong to a past version of you? You don't need to fix everything. You need to remove what doesn't align. So, that could mean ending a program you've outgrown, even if it is profitable, pausing social media for a season to reset your system. I've certainly done that before, saying no to that mastermind everyone else is diving into, and letting go of proven strategies that feel heavy in your body. So here's what I found: the more space I create, the more clarity shows up. And the less I carry, the more my nervous system trusts me and I trust it. And fierce doesn't mean harsh. Fierce means clear. It means loving your business enough to let it evolve. So go through everything from your homepage to your calendar and ask, does this still serve the business I'm being called to lead? If not, bless it and edit it out. It's amazing what then emerges when we clear space. All right. Strategy number 3: design for regulation, not just revenue. Let's name it. A lot of business strategy is built on dysregulation. Launch schedules that ignore your cycle, offer structures that require you to be on 24/7, marketing that leans on urgency and scarcity to get results. And we wonder why we feel anxious and exhausted all the time. So, what if you flipped it? What if you made your nervous system the CEO? What if you asked, how do I want to feel while delivering this? So, what if you created regenerative infrastructure, timelines that allowed you to rest, marketing that flows with your energy, programs that support you as much as they support your people? This isn't idealism, it's biology backed strategy. When you design for regulation, creativity opens, capacity expands, and you stop swinging from hyper productivity to total depletion. For me, that meant moving from launch cycles to enrollment flows. It meant building in a margin, not as an emergency space, but as the declaration that my rhythms matter. And it meant letting rest actually be a strategy, not a reward for sprinting. And yes, revenue followed. But more importantly, I felt well. I felt clear and I felt like myself again. Because the most powerful business you can build is the one your body feels safe inside of, the one that lets you breathe. So if you take nothing else from this episode, take this. You don't have to build from exhaustion anymore. You get to build from wholeness. You get to create a business that grows as you do, not just in size, but in integrity. That's what sustainability really looks like. Not maintenance, not nourishment, not sacrifice, but actual self trust. Not pushing, but actually partnering with your body and your values and your vision. You are allowed to want that, and you are allowed to build it starting now. All right, let me give you a few reflection questions so you can dive in deeper this week. So, number one, what have you outgrown, even if it's still working? So, for example, maybe your offer still sells, but it drains you every time. What's that costing you? Number two, where are you building from should instead of want? For example, are you showing up on platforms you secretly resent or delivering in formats that exhaust you? Number three, if your nervous system was the CEO, what would your business look like? Would your calendar have more space? Would your messaging sound different? Would your creativity be allowed to lead you? So, If you're feeling the pull, if today's conversation touches a place inside you that's been waiting for permission to slow down, to reimagine, and to do it differently, then I talk about some of these things in my free masterclass, How to Menopause Proof Your Business. It's where I show you how to build a business that honors your biology and protects your energy and amplifies your impact without pushing harder or burning out. It's not just strategy, it is a reclamation in this period of time. I'll put the link down in the show notes. No pressure, it's just an open door, and take it if it feels right. All right, so let's wind this down. Let's summarize. There is no award for pushing through, but there is a deep, steady kind of success that we can have, one built on clarity, on alignment, and wholeness. You are allowed to evolve, you are allowed to rebuild, and you're allowed to want something quieter, deeper, and more true to who you are today. And the business that will carry you forward, it starts with listening to your body, to your wisdom, and to that quiet voice inside that's been saying, it's time. You are not behind. You are not late. You're right on time. And this next chapter, it gets to feel like home and welcome you back to yourself. All right. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you next week. Until then, stay fabulous.